Jimmy Carter was president. And there was a conservative group that wanted things to be very, very differently. And the Heritage Foundation was a part of that group. They came up with a 3,000-page manifesto that was implemented during the 8 years of the Reagan presidency. In that was trickle-down economics and all of those things that caused so many families so much trouble in our neighborhoods and throughout our communities. Loss of health care and services for millions and millions of people, people that could not find jobs and could not get services because all of the money for those services were being taken away with the understanding that corporations would fill that, and it did not happen. So just know this is not a new thing, but they learned a lot. So they didn't need 3,000 pages for this one, they only used 924. The second iteration of this, the Heritage Foundation was a player in the first one, but in this one they led the charge. And they had experts from 4 previous presidential administrations. More than 400 of those experts are conservative scholars, and they all worked somehow connected to or worked for or worked in those administrations. Hundreds of authors and dozens of partners. And this is their collective work. So, this Heritage Foundation, even back then, was a big part of the money that Ronald Reagan collected for his presidential campaign. And no surprise, if you do a little research, they're a big part of the funds that have been collected for presidential campaigns in this election as well. But here's a quote. Freedom is a fragile thing, and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. It's not ours by way of inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation. Anybody know who said that? Nobody? Ronald Reagan. He said that. Now guess what? It's true. This is very true. And as I read and read and read into this Project 2025, I find that so many things that were being said in this document are really true. But it's the way it's being applied, the way it's being used. So we have to be wise as we look through and listen to what they put in front of us. They have 4 pillars of their methodology to deconstruct the administrative state. The administrative state in their minds is the way government is being run by the left wing of society. And it is overarchingly invasive into our lives and controlling everything that happens. Pillar 1 is a consensus view on how major federal agencies must be governed. That first pillar details specifically what they want every agency to begin to do. Pillar 2 is a personal database that allows candidates and major businesses to build profiles. Now we know that in everything we're doing, from census and all of these different agencies, they're collecting a lot of data on us. A lot of that data is supposed to be protected. We find that much of that data is not protected, but now they want to compile it into one place and they want to make it available to major corporations and governments for their profiling, for their prospectus, for all of their business strategies and plans. That's an important little known thing that's just barely leaking out. Pillar 3 is the Presidential Administrative Academy. The Administrative Academy, you know, in every aspect of government, we go through different academies of training. And this one reads like none other than I've ever seen, even the military training academies. This is a real invasive approach to how each and every agency, each and every office is supposed to conduct themselves with one overarching thing. The president was elected, and every agency is supposed to do the bidding of that president. If you read through, that's what you begin to see over and over and over again. And Pillar 4 has not yet been developed, but it is the operational playbook, step by step, in what they intend to have done as they move along, okay? The recommendations in this Project 2025 really come from consensus on 4 fronts. First, restoring the family. If you read, you see a lot of things that we agree with. Our families are in trouble. There's mental health crises, there's drug abuse, alcohol abuse, there's crime, there's a lot of things that are influencing and impacting our families. True statement. The second one is dismantling the administrative state, returning self-governance to the people. Well, the intent was for the people to actually control government. It's all in the how. Thirdly, to defend our nation's sovereignty, the borders, and the bounty. And lastly, secure the blessings of liberty, the God-given individual rights to be free. As I read through this document, I start getting proud. I served in the United States Air Force. I love this country. And a lot of this reads true until you get into the details. So let's talk about restoring a family for a minute. The American family is truly in crisis. 40% of children that are born, they say, are born to unwed mothers. And that includes more than 70% of black children in this country. Almost equally the number of children born to Hispanic or Latino families in this country. Their way of fixing this is to get government out of family problems completely. They want to delete terms like sexual orientation, gender identity, diversity, equity, inclusion, critical race theory, and any other terms that they feel are used to deprive Americans of their God-given First Amendment rights from curricula and government use. And I say from curricula, that means anything pertaining to schools, the curriculum, the studies of our children in schools, as well as how government functions. Restoring a family is critically important to how this Project 2025 is supposed to start. This is the key to getting people's attention. Dismantling the administrative state is really about the scourge of government growing so big, trying to address all of these problems. And their contention is that it is not possible for government to fix any of these problems, so why are we doing it? Let's pull out and not do any of this. You dismantle all of those things that are put in place to create freedoms and equity and inclusion and all of those things. Right now, the history that's being taught is not a complete history of this country, and we all know that. And there's a fight to keep that history from being taught. Fatherlessness is the root and major cause of mental illness, suicide, crime, poverty, all of the ills that face our family and our societies. This is their contention. They also believe that Congress passes vague, ambiguous laws and allows bureaucrats to do Congress's job, and Congress isn't doing their job. All of this is their buildup and their justification for why they want to change the way we live. Defending the sovereignty of this country, the borders, and the boundaries, they believe that the president, the administration should have absolute control over whoever enters this country, how long they stay in this country, what they do while they're here. They want to build a wall so that you have few entry points. But I just want to make a little point here. The people that are coming across rivers and streams are coming with nothing, generally except the clothes on their backs. The people that are doing the crimes and the concerns that they keep raising are coming in airports with passports, and they're getting visas. They're overstaying their welcome. Then they're going off the grid to do whatever it is they want to do. The people that are crossing those borders are desperate people. They're not people that are coming to hurt anybody, by and large. They're willing to risk their lives, the lives of their little children and their elders for a better opportunity. We should just look at this a little bit differently. Defending sovereignty, they want to limit outsourcing of contracts, except as it meets the government's needs. Remember the will of the president, the agenda of the president. And of course, they want to place exorbitant costs of trade with foreign governments. They don't want to stop trade. In fact, they want to ship products and work overseas where it can benefit us. But anything coming from overseas, they want to add tremendous cost to. And then secure the blessings of liberty. You know, one of the things that I learned while I was on active duty, I didn't realize that there were code words that were being used regularly. And every time I heard a general or a politician or someone say that you're a good patriot, you're a good American, I didn't realize that that was a code word for saying this person is on our agenda. This person is good with us. The blessings of liberty, they talk about life, liberty, pursuit, happiness, all of those great things that we read about in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, all of those documents. I just want to remind you of one thing. When those documents were drafted, when those things were conceived of, we were the victims of a person. Women had no rights. The only people that were a part of us, in their minds, were the people that looked like them and believed like them and supported them. So when they continually talk about blessings of liberty, good Americans, rule of law, we have to challenge. What are they really talking about? What do they really mean? Project 2025 is invasive, it's huge and cumbersome, and it is intended to change the way we live and move. Unfortunately, they can't touch our being. But their intention is very clear when you read the documents. So let's kind of break this down into some parts. The first thing they want to do is take the reins of government. They want to allow every political appointee the ability to control whatever office or agency or director that they're being given charge of, rather than career government employees. One of the things they ran into in the previous administration was coming in and bringing in cabinet members and those folks that wanted to immediately change some things and do some things, and career government employees said, oh no, we can't do that. That's against the rules. We have to follow the law. And it frustrated them to no end that they could not implement the president's agenda and do what they wanted to do as they wanted to do it. They found they had to go back through Congress, they had to go through all manner of steps in order to be able to effect the changes that they wanted to do, to carry out. Project 2025 is designed to fix that, so they can act swiftly and quickly to make whatever changes they want to make, as they want to make them, and entrust that a political appointee to be the judge and jury and executioner for whatever is going to be carried out. They want the Office of Management and Budget to be based purely on the will of the president, not on what's good for the country. In their minds, in order to make all of this work, they get the federal government under the authority of the president, and they move all of these issues to the state level and let the states fight it out. Oh, isn't that what happened in the 1800s when states started seceding and wanted to form their own Confederate states? I think so. Is that what we want today? Is that progress? Is that moving forward? So when we look at taking the reins of government, in their minds there are two major factions. One is the White House office, and the White House office is that conglomeration of appointees across all those agencies. There's a liaison in the White House for every one of them, and they control them to be the intermediaries for all of those agencies, for all of those officials. And the second part of that is the Executive Office of the President. That's the entity that's responsible for the image and the functions of the president. Well, guess what happens if the president now gets to push their agenda? And guess what? It doesn't matter which party the president belongs to. It doesn't matter what the president wants to do, but if the president is allowed to act unencumbered without being challenged, what does that do? Is that what we really want in this country? And as they look at the White House operations, and they look at the Executive Office of the President and all of these cabinets, they see a lot of redundancy. True, very, very true. A lot of overlap, a lot of redundancy. We could probably save a lot of money if we scrubbed this and eliminated that. But the solution can't be to put everything under the control of one person. Our government was set up with a series of checks and balances for a reason. So after you take the reins of government, the second thing is common defense. Now, of course, we have the branches of the military that all function independently but under joint command. We have Homeland Security. We have all of these different agencies that lend themselves to defense. But they all still operate under different cabinets with different charters, different purposes, and different boundaries. But in this Project 2025, they would all report up to one place. They believe that in a common defense, the best way to ensure our country's survival to the world is displays of power, to show our strength. Somehow I just don't believe that's about parades and marching and air shows and those things. I think it's a lot more aggressive than that. I don't know what you think. Maybe we ought to just think about that, consider that a little bit. Now, when appointees are made to the Defense Department, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Air Force, Secretary of any branch, the undersecretaries, all of those folks, when they are being appointed, they have to go through the process with the Senate of being confirmed. Until they're confirmed, they have no authority whatsoever. But under Project 2025, from the moment they are appointed, they become acting, and they have full control and authority as though they've already been confirmed. So if you do that, what's the point of confirmation? They could already make changes that would be devastating to our country before we even know who they are or what they're about. Is this making sense? In this Project 2025, they want to combine defense, communications, media, and intelligence all into one pot. So we have the National Security Agency, we have the Secretary of Defense, we have all of these different entities with different charters doing different things. We have agencies like the CIA that is not supposed to operate on U.S. soil, the FBI who's not supposed to operate on other soils, all those things. But putting all of this now into one pot, people can operate wherever and however they want to. And of course, the last thing they really talk about in this is command accountability. Why is command accountability important? Because the president is not only the head of our government, the president is commander-in-chief of the military. Command accountability means if this general is not listening and is not doing what the president wants, that general can be fired. We have to think about the implications of what Project 2025 is telling us. In this common defense, they want our nation to demonstrate maximum readiness. They want the world to know that at the drop of a hat, we can move and do anything we want to, any part of the world we can touch, any way we want to. Kind of sounds like a bully, doesn't it? They want unwavering support for Homeland Security, protecting our borders, and against domestic terrorism. Well, who reports through the Department of Homeland Security? That includes the Secret Service and all kinds of folks. And if they can get involved in domestic terrorism, our borders, all of those things, what happens if we are unhappy and we protest? We could have a swarm of feds on us. They want to eliminate the Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. You know, when that was instituted, it really was instituted as one position, not as an office, but it has grown into an office with hundreds of people in there. So their way of fixing that is to eliminate that office rather than correcting the policies and the staffing of it. They want to eliminate the Office of Immigration Detention Oversight. There really is an office that is supposed to provide oversight to who gets detained, who gets put out of the country, who's allowed to stay. Well, if you eliminate that office, then what happens? And they want to use our troops, Army, Marines, all of our troops, to build this wall. Funny thing about walls, though, if you build a wall to keep folks out, you're also doing what? Yeah. So let's talk about some other pieces to this. Labor, U.S. Department of Labor. There's a lot of controls through the Labor Department on workplace safety and OSHA and all kinds of things, how we're supposed to conduct ourselves, what employers can do, should do, have to do to protect employees. They want to minimize those controls. Why? Because companies are investing money, millions of dollars, into protecting employees when they want to use them for profits. They want to keep their money. So if you minimize or eliminate workplace controls, that increases profitability of companies. They want to make it more and more difficult for people to earn overtime pay. Doesn't matter whether you're salaried or hourly, you have a job and your job is to support that company. Why should you get overtime? They want to end the funding of local job creation programs. You know, we've got programs throughout DC, Maryland, all over this country that have been putting young people to work. And if young people aren't working, what are they doing? If they're not working, they're not in school, we got a problem. They want to control and manipulate the data that businesses use for workforce development. We talked about that a little bit already. They want to weaken child labor protections. We have laws that say children can't work until they reach a certain age. And if they do work, here are the things that you have to do to protect them. But yet they want to weaken that. The American Rescue Plan was put into place to save businesses, but I guess it's not the businesses that they want to protect. protect, so they want to cut that plan. Climate. We just saw Hurricane Helene, and now we've got, what's his name, Milton, out there. How many of you were watching television as the storms were approaching and seeing the reports that were coming in from NOAA? What happens if NOAA is disbanded? What do we learn about hurricanes? Now, we know that during Helene, a lot of people got caught off guard because they thought it was coming in a different place, a different way. Same thing happened with Hurricane Andrew down in my home years ago. They thought it was coming in one place, but it came in another. But what happens if you don't have any warnings at all? They want to disband NOAA. They want to disband the Environmental Protection Agency. They want to expand offshore drilling. They want to move environmental funding from the feds to the state governments. Well, guess what? We've seen evidence that most states don't care about environmental protections. They want to promote fossil fuel programs. You know how many of our children deal with asthma today because of fossil fuels? They want to get rid of greenhouse gas and energy programs. They already have been fighting for years trying to get us out of the Paris Climate Agreement, and they want to cut federal money that's geared to renewable energy programs. They want to disband the Department of Education completely. They want to end LGBTQ+ protections for students. They want to remove, but let me just talk about that for a second. Now, many of us might say, well, you know what? As Christians and all, you know, we don't really concern ourselves with that, but guess what? If they do it to those folks, you think we're far away from that? We have to think about those things. We have to think about how they treat the people around them, and so many of those are their own children. They want to remove ideology funding from all higher education except for international curriculum. They want to cut or eliminate federal loan programs. Federal loan programs give our students access to lower interest loans. The private loans are killing them. They want to eliminate all critical race theory and alternative history from the curriculum of all of our school systems. They want to eliminate Head Start and early education programs. Those things we've seen benefit low-income, black, brown children tremendously. If they eliminate those, that gap gets broader and broader. They want to promote school vouchers. So children that are going to private schools under this program, their families would get a voucher to help offset the cost of them being in a private school. Guess where that voucher money comes from? The budget of the school system where that child's supposed to be in school. So if you take 1,000 children out of school and each voucher is $7,000, and you take $700,000 from a school system's budget because of these children, $7 million, okay? So guess what? I wasn't a math major. You see what we're doing to school systems and to their budgets? So can we hire the best teachers? Can we incentivize them for being in our school systems and teaching our children? Oh, I think I went too fast. Yeah. Healthcare. They want to privatize healthcare. Why? Do you know what the biggest lobbying groups in our nation are? The NRA, the pharmaceuticals, healthcare providers. They're the biggest and most aggressive by far. So am I surprised, or should you be surprised? They want to privatize healthcare. They want to reduce the government's role in providing healthcare. They want to reduce or eliminate all government healthcare programs, restrict access to contraception, reduce access to abortions. They want to remove government from prescription drug oversight. They just got insulin down to $35. How many lives has that saved? And all of a sudden, you flip that, and people that saw hope, lose it again. Medicaid access, privatizing Medicare. These aren't new things. Just look back at the Reagan years. They want the FBI and the Department of Justice under the president's control. Right now, even though the Justice Department is a presidential cabinet, it is not operating fully under the president's control. They operate independently. But their goal is to pull that under presidential control. They want to increase funding for local law enforcement and provide immunity for law enforcement officers in the performance of their duty. That means every black child that's shot, whether it's in the back or in the front, whether it's a knee on the neck, whether they're being choked out, that officer has immunity. That sounds like open season to me. Farmers have been catching it because of climate and environmental issues, and they have safety nets to help them stay afloat, but they want to remove those safety nets. They want to restrict access to food assistance programs so that families that can't afford food would again struggle in mighty ways. They want to tighten controls on veterans' disability and provide tax cuts for corporations and individuals, but do you think those tax cuts will extend themselves to our income levels? They want to make a lot of changes. They want to do a lot of things that we have to think about. How does this impact us? What does this do to our daily lives? Our children go to school with a lot of different children around. And if those children are protected and safe, if things aren't working well for them, it impacts our children. That impacts our homes, our household. All of these things have rolling effects. Project 2025 is an aggressive and dangerous agenda. We can say all day we don't know who it's designed for, how it's going to work, but we should know one thing clearly. It's not designed to benefit us at all. In our communities, in our homes, this is dangerous. And we should be willing to find out and fight how this ever gets to see the light of day. Okay, that's it for the presentation. As I said, we don't have any subject matter experts here, so you can't ask questions expecting deep answers, but we do have some materials. We've been studying this a lot. We've got some people that have done a lot of reading. So, you want to talk about it a little bit? Anybody have any questions or thoughts you want to raise? There's a microphone right here.
I'll get the ball rolling. I first want to say thank you so much, Reverend Moultrie, for such a thorough breakdown of this very long and disconcerting document. One thing that I noticed is that so much of what the project wants to implement seems to be in the face of the Constitution. And on checks and balances, I was struck, and you said a number of things, but I caught this one under the common defense portion, part 2. They want to achieve unwavering support to Homeland Security for border protection. So if someone were to protest that, then that seems to be antagonizing, but that then would go against our First Amendment rights, right? So I'm wondering, in your research, or since we're having a discussion, does anyone know what the plan for implementation is? Because this project, if successful, would fundamentally change our government toward a dictatorship where the president is making most of the shots. And so in your researches, is there anything about implementation? So these are the ideas, but what's even scarier is how they might try, or how this group might try to implement these conditions. And so I was wondering about that.
So one of the things that I found in researching this is this plan was not supposed to become public yet. That was a mishap on their part that it became public. They wanted to wait a bit longer before it came out. So if you look at the first, 20-some pages of this manifesto, you see a laundry list of names of contributors. If you Google those people, you start seeing which administrations they worked for, and they worked in very specific offices and places. They are working on the playbook, but it has not come out in the light of day yet. So how those things will be implemented will be in the playbook. But they've got people from administrations and every office in the government working together to pull together a very concise plan on this. And I just don't think we can afford to wait until it hits the light of day to be upset about it. You have a question? Or comment?
Further elaboration. So I think it's important to note that we are assuming that they plan to follow the law somehow. They plan to make this kosher. If we have paid attention for the last 10 years, their new methodology has been do something illegal and get it and fight it until it gets to the Supreme Court. Because right now, the Supreme Court will rubber stamp what it is that they want to do. So don't assume because something is not statutorily possible or it flies in the face of the Constitution that somehow those documents will protect us. Because we've already seen that they will not, as long as the Supreme Court is willing to rubber stamp what it is that they want to do. The court system, the federal court system in this country, they are very good at being able to manipulate it for their end goals. They're willing to wait, they're willing to play the long game, they're willing to get the right case in order to do what it is that they're trying to do. I think all along we have been assuming logic, that we're fighting people who are playing by the rules, that we are looking at this as brinksmanship, that somehow we can counter it as long as we are following the law. And that's just not the case.
Yeah, that's a really important point. And so let's also keep in mind that our government was established with a system of checks and balances, three branches of government, the legislative, the executive, and the judicial, to check each other. Well, guess what? The Supreme Court, the judicial branch, is firmly rooted right now in that conservative theology. If the presidency goes that route, that's two branches. The only other one we have any control over is the Congress. That's the House of Representatives and the Senate. That's why our votes are so critically important. We have to really pay attention to not let anybody get control of all of these branches of government. Come on up to the microphone, sir. Good to see you, man.
Thank you very much. It was good to have this forum here. I think one of the solutions to this not seeing the light of day is to vote. That's our power. And we have to encourage every person, young, old, to vote. They're going to vote their conscience, but we got to make sure they vote. And also to inform them. One of the things I wanted to say, following up on what was said a moment ago, is that part of that long game that the Republicans have played is about filling judgeships from down here to up here. So when we vote, we aren't just voting for a president. We're voting for those judges that may be appointed by that president. And so it's not just the presidency. And people say, well, and we think now that if we can't answer the question, or they can't answer the question appropriately, what have they done for me? Which is totally the wrong question. It's about what are we, and notice we've gone away from what you can do for the country to what can the country do for me, and one of our former presidents is very much about the me. And so we have to be thinking about the vote. And a lot of people don't care to vote. And we have to engage with them. Why? Because I think people just don't understand how much is really in balance. The other thing I want to say about this is, part of the things here about giving states autonomy, it's about giving the friendly states autonomy. Those states that line up to do the president's bidding. Let's talk about Biden administration not giving money to red states. Lies. But under another administration, that may very well be the modus operandi. You didn't vote for us, we ain't giving you nothing. It's not right. So, vote.
Thank you for that. I want to say a couple things. First, we really don't want to get into talking parties and those things. So I just want to be clear. This agenda, it really doesn't matter which party. It doesn't matter who it is. We want anybody having this kind of control. This is craziness. So we have to be smarter than that and vote. I agree fully. But it doesn't matter who it is. We don't want anybody having this kind of authority. But so the other thing I want to say is, since you mentioned voting so emphatically, I was talking to a group of gentlemen, and I know some of y'all are online, but the question came up, look, I can't vote because, I've done time. Not a true statement anymore. You go to the Department of Elections and do some research. If you are not currently serving time, if your time is done, you can register and vote. So please, doesn't matter what your offense was. If you've done your time, you've paid your debt to society, you can register and vote. So please do that. Anybody else? Any other thoughts, comments? Chris, if you're looking in the chat, is anything coming up in the chat?
A big thank you, but no questions.
I want to just come from a different slant. I'm so glad you started the conversation back with Ronald Reagan, 1980, because that's when it really started. And you would have to do a deep dive to know the connecting points between Project 2025 and all that took place under his two presidencies, starting with him showing America that I mean business in the presidency controlling. And I am going to make sure I deregulate every regulatory agency that had power of oversight. He deregulated them, and then he started with the PACCO strikers, okay? We have to connect all of that together. And the reason that took place is because from 1932 to 1994, Congress was Democratic. I think it may have been a couple of years in between there where it was Republican, but it was Democratic. And what happened was the Democrats controlled the presidency, and they set policy. And if you look at it, it was working fine. So then you have to rush and see, well, where did things shift? You cannot forget 1994, the contract with America. You guys remember that? The contract with America. Contract with America was a forerunner of Project 2025, and what Contract with America did was it reduced the power of Congress, okay? And it tried to increase the power, the Congress flipped in 1994 to Republican for the first time in about 40 years. And what it did was, it gave more power to Congress, and it reduced Bill Clinton's power as his presidency. And so if you look at the years between 1994 and where we are now, also Brooke, that vote is so critical to all of this. We can talk about the presidential vote all we want to, but that vote is critical because if that House is flipped back to Republican, then all of this is you talked about not talking about implementation. Implementation is already done. Because then they would flip it back where, okay, we have a Congress that's going to support the president, and we're going to put all of this power in the president's hand. So my summarization statement would be then, therefore, if we look at ourselves now, 1994 to now, we even had a black president voted in twice. When the contract with America would say, slow all of this down. And what I'm trying to summarize by saying is, no worries, we don't have to worry. We definitely have to vote and pay attention to details. But I think when we get to the society steadily moving forward, I truly remember the fear that people in their hearts when Newt Gingrich and his group came into Washington talking about what they were going to do with the contract with America. So I think if we think about that and just go back in time and look at that, we won't be too upset about that.
And you know, you just reminded me, we really didn't talk about Social Security and the millions of people. You know, it wasn't many years ago that life expectancy in this country was, what, 67, 68 years old? And look, right now in this room. We are living a lot longer. And so Social Security is already in trouble because they already started playing with Social Security. But if they get an opportunity to make changes, millions of Americans will lose their livelihood because Social Security is all some Americans have to live on. Veterans, disability, they will change our disability checks. You know, we really got to begin to understand how invasive this is. I do want to go back to one thing. You reminded me of something under the Department of Energy. A lot of the regulations that energy has put in place cost corporations billions of dollars every year. There are so many more things they could do if they didn't have to do all of these things to keep us safe from nuclear regulators around the country and all of those things. But if they didn't, remember when people were catching cancer just from living in a house near a plant, lead in paint, lead in water pipes, all of these things came about under the work that the Department of Energy did. We really stand to change the course of our children's future if we don't pay attention. So there's a lot more to this. And trust, we are just scraping the surface of this. Just scraping the surface. If you want, we can have more discussions on this. We can dig deeper and come back and talk some more. You know, anybody else, any other questions, comments, thoughts? You know, and talking about energy, I'm just going to raise a point just because I can, because I got the microphone. Right over here, Washington Gas has
natural gas pipeline.
And for the next year, every hour, there's a truck coming, making deposits into that pipeline, natural gas into that pipeline. I don't know if they've done any studies of what that does to the residents around here. But we have to start paying attention to what's going on. We have to pay attention. We have to ask questions, okay? There is, just because I can say it, on Thursday of this week, there's a walking town hall meeting. The mayor and council will start off at 4:30 at the community center and do a walking town meeting in Lincoln Park. Great opportunity to come out and ask them questions about things just like that. Because that has been there for years. Lincoln Park is the only neighborhood in the city of Rockville that has industry surrounding it on 3 sides. The only neighborhood that has industry on 3 sides of it. And what are they doing to regulate those industries to make them clean up their properties? Very little. Anybody else have a question or comment? Anybody else? Did you want to say something? Oh, come on. If there's nothing else, we'll end it, but okay, going once, going twice. So thank y'all so much for coming out tonight. Really enjoyed doing this. Want to remind you that next Monday night at 7 o'clock, we have a candidate forum for the Board of Education candidates. There are 6 candidates for 3 seats on the Board of Education. That is really critical and important stuff. As a matter of fact, if they get to implement Project 2025, the local Board of Education is going to be so much more important to our communities than ever before. So who we put in those seats is very, very important. And we will have all 6 of the candidates. We had one that held out on this, but all 6 of the candidates have confirmed that they'll be here next Monday night for a candidate forum. So we invite you to come back out and listen to them. One segment of that is community questions. You can ask questions, but you've got to send them to me in email form in advance. We will not take questions on the floor because we do want to be fair to the candidates. We have to screen vet the questions, okay? So if you have questions, I need you to send me an email with the questions before Sunday night next week. All right? Thank y'all so much. Have a great night. God bless you.